Zor the Mighty. Synopsis: Zor the Mighty and Della Parker have taken up allegiance with Rabak, the renegade leader, to release the world of Kaz from Emperor Manuf's tyrant rule. Zor and Rabak carefully planned out their campaign against Emperor Manuf. But the Emperor was not idle. With two of his trusted captains beside him, he outlined his plan. Listen carefully. This stranger called Zor has caused me more trouble than all the renegades put together. He has a maiden with him, with whom he's in love. Do you follow me, Captain Wong? Ah, I see what you mean, Your Excellency. If this maiden should be brought here, Zor will follow and fall into a trap. Correct. It's an ancient form of trickery, but it has always worked. I will leave the details to you and Captain Ting. I want the girl by tomorrow. We shall not fail, Your Excellency. That night, the two henchmen speed silently into the jungle. A few minutes later, a bronze figure landed lightly onto a tree near the city walls. Zor studied the scene before him for any signs of life, then swung onto the wall. The caveman dropped silently down into the black shadow of the wall and made his way to the city gates. Hands of steel grasped the two guards by the neck and swung their heads together with terrific force. A few seconds later, Zor had the gates open, and Rabak, with one of his men and Nu the saber-toothed tiger, emerged from the jungle. They hid the guards in the brush, then Rabak and his assistant stood guard at the gates. Seeing that all had gone well, Zor and Nu crept silently into the heart of the city towards the palace. With the agility of a monkey, the caveman climbed up the stone wall towards the emperor's room while the giant tiger waited in the darkness below. Like a black shadow, Zor slipped through the open window. To Zor's disappointment, he discovered the bed empty. Suddenly, he heard footsteps approaching the room. The Paleolithic man quickly stepped out onto the balcony and hid himself behind the tapestry. Emperor Manuf and one of his generals entered. By tomorrow, Zor and Rabak will be in my power. Della Parker will make excellent bait for the trap, Your Highness. We should receive word of Captain Wong's success soon. On hearing of Della's plight, Zor let out a low snarl and leaped upon the startled emperor. The blonde caveman felled the emperor with one mighty blow, then swung him onto his back and disappeared out the window. Zor sped swiftly and silently down the side streets with his royal burden. Suddenly, the city came to life, and soldiers swarmed into the streets. Through the city gates poured Rabak's renegades, and in a few moments, a terrific battle raged in the city. Zor was met by Rabak and his renegades. The caveman handed Manuf over to one of the soldiers. Then Zor and Nu spearheaded the attack on Manuf's broadcasting station. And there, under the threat of Zor's knife, Emperor Manuf ordered his troops to surrender. Soldiers of the Emperor, lay down your arms and surrender to the renegades. I, your Emperor, command you. We did it, Zor! Kaz is now free from slavery forever. We are not finished yet, Rabak. Some of Manuf's henchmen are holding Della prisoner. With those words, the caveman sped into the jungle. The Paleolithic man traveled for many hours. His sensitive eyes easily read the henchman's trail. Suddenly, Zor burst into a clearing and beheld Manuf's henchmen struggling with Della Parker. At the sight of Zor, Captain Wong seized his knife and pressed it against Della's throat. Stop, or the girl dies! Zor halted in his tracks and eyed his two enemies, his muscular body quivering with rage. Suddenly, with lightning swiftness, the bronze giant threw his knife at the menacing figure behind the girl. The deadly missile flashed through the air and buried itself in Captain Wong's throat. At the same moment, Zor leaped at the startled Captain Ting, but Zor tripped over a loose vine and sprawled onto the ground. With a cry of delight, Captain Ting raised his acid gun at the helpless caveman. At this moment, Della threw herself before Zor and met the full force of the deadly acid pellets. Slowly, the girl sank to the ground beside Zor and died in his arms. Captain Ting turned to flee, only to fall prey to a giant carnivorous plant. A few minutes later, his dead body swung lightly to and fro, the slender tentacle leaves having crushed out his life. Zor carried the lifeless body of his beloved one back to the city of Lumar, where it was buried in the royal tomb of Kaz. Then the caveman bade farewell to Rabak and left the world of Kaz. Little does Zor know of the many startling adventures that lie before him.